Welcome to another episode of Paradox TV. Coming to ya, making sound waves, going crazy, loving life. It's great. On this episode, it's going to be a short episode. So, high octane episode. Here we go. What would I do different? So these are ideas that I want to impress to you, the great UK public going across the world. So here's an interesting idea. We live in a democracy. Idea of a democracy is that majority rules, bizarrely enough. So this is what I propose. Our Commons, House of Lords, MPs, doesn't really matter. It's a backwards system that needs to be completely and utterly changed around. And you might say, well, do you know what? What we need to do is we need to get a load of lawyers in there, or we need to get a kind of different standard of person in there, or whatever it is. You know what? The way it should be is that there should be elections held, which happen, which are secret, which happen. So that's great. But then the people in Parliament should then be able to give the laws that are discussed back to the people. So, for example, I don't know, should we have had a say on same-gender same-gender marriages? Absolutely. We should have had a say on that. And do you know what should have been done? There should have been a person for, there should have been a person against. You should have had a code or a number, and you should have been able to vote in as to whether you agree or not that same-gender relationships can be classed as marriage, and that marriage can no longer be classed between a man and a wife. And we should have been able to have that vote, because that's actually a pretty big thing. Because whether you believe in Jesus or not is irrelevant. But I want to tell you something now. God respects a nation that honours his son. He takes care of a nation that honours his son. He puts his arm around a nation that honours his son, and puts his son at the very centre of everything that we do. And when we come away from that, when we start to dissipate from that, it only leads to one revelation, it only leads to one conclusion. And look at it through history: complete and utter destruction. Whether people like it or whether they don't is irrelevant. But since 1948, and you can see what happened in 1948, that's down to you. But since 1948, we have seen the greatest destruction of an empire so emphatically, so quickly, over such a short period of time. So we've gone through a stage of 2 world wars. In the Second World War, Britain kept hold of its empire quite magnificently. And since that point, you can literally drive a date of 1948, which I can share on another video. But the UK flag was hung upside down out of complete kind of an anomaly, which stands for country in distress. And you can look at that point in time and you can trace everything which has fallen apart to that particular date. So what we need to do is we need to get on our hands and knees, repent of what it is that we've been doing as a nation. And the Lord will forgive us. The Lord will forgive us. God will forgive us. And once again, we can be a nation which is under God, where our monarch is a defender of the faith. For example, again, just another idea. But the moment we took God out of our schools, the moment we couldn't tell people that God created everything, all we were doing, people go, oh, well, it's a person's opportunity to decide. And that's great. But all we were doing as a nation was agreeing with a viewpoint that said that, there is no creation. Everything is just a random coincidence of chance, which is so absurd. It's actually beyond belief. It's a paradox in itself. But all we did, they said, "Oh yeah, but we're not pointing and we're letting people decide." But all we did was we allowed our children to be taught in a manner which isn't morally correct, however you like to look at that. We taught our children that actually what it is they do doesn't really matter, and convinced them that they're not special at all and they're all the same. All the same. And you know what? That's not true. I believe that every single person has a destiny. Every single person has a potential. Whether they fulfill that potential or not is down to them. But they have that potential. And when we took God out of our schools, when they said down the line of something like, oh yeah, well, you know, we can't convince or can't say to someone what they can and can't believe, which is in itself true, but we can't even give them guidance on it. Then all we did is we suppled them up, so that when they got to the age of 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 and left school, it was easier to radicalise them. It was easier to teach them something which was a lie, which was a deception. And we want to break free of that mould. So again, this is just another idea of Paradox TV, whereby it gives power to the people that every single law of significance which is passed can be put in front of the nation, all those that are eligible to vote, and they can vote via telephone or whatever it is at that point in time. They can vote about particular issues which may or may not be important to them, and you can have an argument for and an argument against, and then the people can make the decision, and then do you know what? You make it law. It's really that simple. That way you avoid all the big payoffs from the bank, you avoid companies impressing upon politicians the way that they should vote or not vote. You get rid of all the spin from politicians who say they're pro-Euro, then they're anti-Euro, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And you get the truth, because the truth matters. Look forward to speaking to you again at Paradox TV.